What's up, people, degenerates? How are you doing? We are back. It is another season of Locked In with us over here at Important Nonsense. I'm your host, Mason P. Cameron at PFF_Mace on Twitter. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta at Vishaal_Gupta95 on Twitter. We have a little bit of a new setup this year. It is perfect for a new season. How are you doing? How are you living? How was your summer? Are you ready for some football?
It is so good to be back. We have been waiting for football for 6-7 months. It has been a long wait. It's finally back. Kick things off with a crazy opening game last night, and we just got a bunch more to go this weekend and for the rest of the season. So just super looking forward to it. Let's do it.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. We have a lot of good games to break down. Business as usual for anybody who doesn't know how the show runs. V and we start off by breaking down sort of the betting implications of what happened over on Thursday Night Football. Actually, I should back up a second. We're live every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. And we're breaking down all of our favorite bets for the season, for the week. We start off by breaking down the betting implications of the Thursday night game. We had a good one, V. It was pretty solid. And then we head into our picks for the week. We usually do quite a few picks, but this time around, we're going to condense it just a little bit, keep it more focused. We've got 6 games in the chamber for you that we can't wait to talk about. But first off, V, we got to start with the first game. We had Dallas heading into Philly to take on the Eagles. It was a doozy. Dallas ends up falling, though, 20-24. The Eagles in this one were favored about 8.5 points. And the game total on this one, it was anywhere between, it looks like it might have closed anywhere between like 46 is what I'm seeing here on Betting Pros, as well as when I took it, it was 47.5. So Dallas covers plus 8.5. We had 44 total points. So the under ends up hitting. It was an interesting one. Of course, it wouldn't be a new football season without some bad blood. Jalen Carter gets ejected early in the game, or not even early in the game, like before the game even really got started at all. And spitting on Dak, but of course, it comes down to always the second guy who gets caught because Dak, there's, that video, Dak comes out, he's jawing a little bit. I'm not going to lie, I thought it was a little questionable, a little slimy to do what he did to sort of spit in Jalen Carter's direction from behind his offensive line, mind you. I guess smart quarterback for staying behind his line. And then sort of getting into the argument and jawing with him. So what did you make of this game early on? What did you see? Were you surprised that Dallas came out swinging? They sort of sputtered down the stretch due to the weather. I mean, Dak played decently well, but then CeeDee Lamb had a couple of crucial drops there. One of them that wasn't so much a drop that he had to lay out for that I wouldn't necessarily call it a drop. Yes, it hit his hands. But that's a tough catch to make. Like nobody's.
There's a couple others he definitely could have had, right?
There's definitely a couple others that he definitely could have had. And then another development that, of course, I get into an argument with somebody in my fantasy league about AJ Brown. I'm a huge fan of AJ Brown. You know me, and I got into an argument about, no, I think AJ Brown's a top 3 receiver in the league. And then, of course, he gets 0 targets for, 3.5 quarters plus. So it was a doozy of a game. What did you make of this one out of the gate?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, super crazy to start off with, obviously, with the Carter stuff, and then just offensive fireworks from both teams, just, for pretty much the entire first half. Both teams are trading touchdown blows left and right. Nobody wanted to play any defense. Obviously, the Cowboys' offense, I think people were probably going into the game underappreciating it because Dak missed so much of the season last year, and even when he was in, the offense wasn't looking too good. But if you go back to the 2023 season, he was phenomenal that year in the regular season, almost won MVP. And I think the expectation should be somewhere closer to that than to what we saw from them last year. So I think there's been a little bit of an undervaluing of the Cowboys, at least on the offensive side of the ball, that I think is probably going to catch up to people who maybe haven't been paying as much attention. So I think what we're going to see throughout the year is that there's going to be some value on this Cowboys team, especially if they're getting these large spreads like we saw last night, getting 8.5. I mean, obviously Philly's a much better team, but there are still way too many competent players on this Dallas offense to be getting that many points. So I think that there's going to be a sneaky value on Dallas throughout the rest of the season if we keep getting some of these bigger lines. So that was the big one I took away from that. And then, Philly did what they did, same as last year. I mean, their offense wasn't terrific for the entire game, but they just have so many playmakers. It doesn't matter. You can just dink and dunk your way down the field. Let Saquon do what he does. I think he broke almost every single first tackle attempt that Dallas defense had. He never went down on first contact ever the entire game. He just kept picking up first down after first down. Hurts was phenomenal in terms of just managing the game, getting the ball out quickly when he needed to, picking up first downs with his legs. So just a classic Philly stuff that we've come to expect. So no surprises there, but yeah, I think the Dallas offense is the one that caught my eye. They're going to be a lot better than people think.
Yeah, it's interesting because I, of course, was one of those people who left Dallas for dead before the game even started. I thought that this game was going to be a blowout. I thought, they were not going to get anywhere close to this, but they came out swinging. They really established the passing game. We had a big run from Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders shows some life. I thought they weren't going to be able to run the ball at all. I thought they weren't going to be able to stop the run at all. I actually wrote about a same game parlay that I felt really strongly about over at pff.com of I liked the under there at 47.5. I liked I liked Saquon Barkley to go over 25 rushing yards in the first quarter. He's got a great motor to start. And then I thought he was going to have over 20 carries, which he potentially could have, but Jalen Hurts had 14 carries, and that was a doozy for me. So,
Also, they put Will Shipley in there a couple of times. It seems
yep.
like they're maybe managing his touches early on in the season a little bit. They don't want to overwork him this year.
Yeah, they don't they want to keep him fresh, which is not as exciting for myself, who thought they were going to
Right.
come out and give him the ball, 60 times so that he could get close to, breaking that rushing record. So it's going to be more of an uphill battle with roughly about like what was it, 60 yards I think he had right there. So it's going to be interesting to watch both of these teams moving forward. I think another development with this Eagles team is that this defense was undoubtedly the best in the NFL last season. It was a huge reason why they were so good. They had the highest grading coverage unit. They were the only coverage unit in the NFL that graded like over a 90 in team PFF coverage grade. And they looked rather beatable at points. And I
Yeah.
think that comes down to that, two new starters in the secondary is something that is, I mean, you always got to take into account. So it's going to be something worth watching. Maybe we monitor that moving forward and really see how they go versus another opponent, or because it really are the Eagles coming back down to earth, or is Dallas just elevating their game? Maybe it's a little bit of both, and it's just something that we're going to have to watch moving
There's
forward.
also definitely a lot of Jalen Carter being out too. I think that changes things dramatically for that team too. I think he is that engine right now. Without him, they just can't do what they want to do in terms of rushing the quarterback. That just gives quarterbacks more time, and then these corners are not good enough to be able to hang with some of these top end receivers for.
Oh, I may have lost V, but that's okay. We're going to keep trucking while we figure out. Oh, are you back, V? I think I might have lost
I
you on
think
the
so.
connection there for a second.
No worries. Just saying, I think Jalen Carter going out, I think that was probably a big impact on what we saw from the Philly defense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And of course, anybody watching along with us at home, thank you for bearing with us. We have a new system that we're running the stream on now. So it is going to take a little time to work out some kinks. So appreciate anybody who's sticking with us. But V, it's time now we're going to break into the games that we're taking this week. And we're going to start off with a game that I really, really, really love. And that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading into Atlanta to take on the Falcons. The Bucks here are -1 on the road. This game has actually moved quite a bit, or excuse me, 1.5 at more reputable books. Um, this game has moved quite a bit. It was 2.5 even just yesterday. The game total on this one, 47. That started to creep down a little bit. And I'm personally loving Atlanta on the money line here. I mean, when we talk about what this Falcons team did at the end of the season versus what this Bucks team did at the end of the season, they're just polar opposites. These teams had polar uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Polar opposite trajectories of which directions they were going to close out the year. Atlanta, sputtered at the end, lost control of the division, and the Bucks just came in, swooped in with one of the best offenses in the NFL, and it all just sort of fell apart. Bucks end up winning another division title, but I don't think a lot of people remember that this Falcons team played two of really good games against the Bucks, one that went into overtime, and they won both of them and covered both of them. So I'm actually leaning more towards the Falcons here because I think they are going to be an improved unit, especially where they were really weak last year on in the pass rush. Two first round pass rushers. And personally, I'm very, very high on James Pierce Jr. He's actually my pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to have himself a heyday against Charlie Heck, who is going to be in there for Tampa Bay at left tackle, replacing Tristan Wirfs. And what can you say? Tristan Wirfs goes from one of the best in the game, the highest NFL or the NFL's highest pass blocking grade last season, to a guy who doesn't have a ton of experience. And when he has been on the field, he's been pretty mediocre. So I think you're going to see a big game there from the Falcons pass rush, which we didn't see at all last season. And they desperately, desperately needed it. I also think they have some young guys in the secondary that I think can really, really show some stuff. And I'm excited to watch them play. But I think the big draw here obviously has to be Michael Penix Jr. Michael Penix Jr., really small sample size, but in pretty much everything that we saw from him to end the season in those last three starts, he was phenomenal. He graded out above the 90th percentile in a ton of stable metrics. Clean pocket grading, first and second down grading, third and fourth down grading, standard drop back, you name it. He was effective and efficient. And if he can continue that trend, I think that this is going to be a hard team to stop. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, they have the weapons. If they improve on the defensive side of the ball, young quarterback, I think they're ripping and ready to go. The Falcons are my pick to win the division this year, and I like them in this game on the money line at home, getting points. Is there anything that you were seeing in this matchup that you wanted to know?
Well, I just think this might be the most critical week one game we have on the slate, and it's not usually something you say because it's such a long season. What happens in week one usually is not super important, but I think for most people, when it's coming down to the NFC South, we're picking between either Tampa Bay or Atlanta. So this is going to have some big implications when it comes to tiebreakers or record wise when it comes to the end of the season to see who's actually going to win this division and who's going to try to get a home playoff game once we hit January. So this is a pretty critical game. These teams can't come out slow. They have to come out firing and try to win this game no matter what. But yeah, I think a lot of points you hit were correct. I think the Tristan Wirfs thing is massive. Him being out for a little while is definitely going to hurt this Tampa offense. They have a new offensive coordinator coming in with Liam Cohen going to Jacksonville. So we have to kind of see how that's going to work out. I think this is the third offensive coordinator in 3 years after losing Dave Canales and then Liam Cohen. So it worked out well for them last year. Can they do it again in terms of bringing in a new guy and maintaining a certain level for that offense? Very interesting to see. But yeah, the key is going to be, can this young Atlanta defense do anything at all to slow down Baker and that Tampa Bay offense? I think it's a good value play on the money line. I'd probably lean more towards the over just because I have questions about both defenses, and I think there's just too many weapons on both teams' offenses that I think there's just going to be tons of points in this game. So I'd probably lean towards the over. But if I was going to make a play on the game, I I think taking Atlanta makes sense, just getting the points there.
Yeah, in something to make a note of, you did say, Liam Cohen not there anymore. I'm a big believer in coaching. I am still relatively high on the Bucks. I think they're going to be still a good team. I do have
Yeah.
some questions about that defense, but there is always that sentiment that Todd Bowles comes out and puts young quarterbacks that he faces in knots, and I don't know if I buy into that one on this one. I think Michael Penix is going to come out and just sort of sling it around. But so, yeah, I agree with you. I like your take on the game total there as well. Um, this is probably one of the games I'm most excited about
Yeah.
to start the slate here on Sunday. So we're going to head into the next game here. And this is one that you have tabbed on the card here. We have the Las Vegas Raiders heading into New England to take on the Patriots. New England here, -2.5 at home. Game total on this one, roughly about 44 points, 43.5 in some spots. You're liking the over on 43.5 here. What are you seeing with this one that makes you like that over?
Yeah, I am fairly shocked that this total is as low as it is, given how bad both of these defenses were last year, and we were expecting them to still be pretty bad going into this season. Both teams ranked in the bottom third last year in terms of points allowed. Both teams ranked in the bottom five in terms of takeaways last year. New England was dead last in sacks last season. There's just not a lot of big name players on either defense. Starting with the Raiders, their starting cornerbacks are Eric Stokes and Darnay Holmes. Eric Stokes is a fringe 53 roster player, and he is their cornerback one going into the season. That is a tough spot to be in. They lost one of their starting safeties, and Lonnie Johnson, who got hurt during training camp. He's going to miss the first month or two of the season. That's a big loss. So that is a tough secondary coming into the year. Obviously, they have Max Crosby. They've liked what they've seen out of Tyree Wilson so far. So if he can, kind of take a step and live up to that top 10 pick hype, there could be some nice things happening on the front line. But obviously, they also lost Christian Wilkins, so that's a big blow. So there's just not a ton of high star power on that defensive side of the ball. So I don't really see how they're going to slow offenses down. Going over to New England's defense, they did add Milton Williams. They paid him a ton of money out of Philly in free agency. They are expected to get Christian Barrett back, who's obviously missed a lot of time with some medical issues. So hopefully he's back at 100%. That'd be a big boost for them. But they don't have too much else out of that. Christian Gonzalez has already been ruled out for this game. So their secondary is not looking great. They released Jabril Peppers a couple of weeks ago. So again, there's just not a lot of star power on that side of the ball either. And now you have to try to stop Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, Trey Tucker. There's a lot of good players over there on that Raiders offense. Plus, you bring in Geno Smith under center, who's going to be a big improvement with what they've had over the last couple of years in terms of quarterback play. Chip Kelly is going to try to be in his bag, going for a second run in the NFL. Let's see what he does this time around. I think there's just going to be a lot of points in this game. I could easily see this game going over 50. So love the over on this one.
And hey, your guy Trey Tucker, he's getting Geno now. He's getting some quarterback play. Let's see, maybe he can take that step forward. I agree with you there. Something that I think is to note of this game is what I really actually like what the Patriots did in terms of free agency and the draft. We talk about all of the big name players they brought in free agency, but I think we have to talk about Travion Henderson. I think that this guy is going to be the focal point of this offense, and that can be a huge issue for a Raiders team that really wasn't great against the run last season. I mean, on paper, some of what they were doing was decently well, but it didn't really feel like it made an effect on the field. And now when you look at them, they really lost three of their best run defenders in free agency this season with Trayvon Moehrig and a few other guys.
Landon Roberts,
yeah, I think that they're going to come back down to earth in that regard. I don't think they're going to have much of an answer for Travion Henderson, and I think it's going to be a big day for him. I think you can get his rushing total at right around about 50 yards, which I think I would take, especially because, I think markets are a little bit, sheepish on what to give his line at,
There's a
because
few backfields in the league right now that are kind of suspect. I think we're going to have a much clearer picture after week one because I think some of us feel like, what are these coaching staffs going to do? Is Mike
Right.
Vrabel really going to be like that old school coach and be like, you have to earn it, and I'm going to give the ball to Stevenson the
Right.
entire game, and then maybe in 2 3 weeks we'll let Henderson come in? Or is he actually going to give the ball to the player who's clearly significantly better and more explosive and will help them win right away in Henderson? So I think we'll have
Exactly.
to see. We'll have to see what coaching staffs are going to do what. We'll have a clear picture going into week 2, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, we have to talk about the Raiders offensive line. I think you know, it's a question, without a doubt. So we have to see what they're going to be able to do. Really love Ashton Genty. I think that when you look at some of their pieces offensively, like you mentioned, they have the dogs that they could go out and be a team. It's just really going to come down to the variance of that offensive line. So it is going to be something to monitor moving forward. We're going to actually learn a lot from this game because these are actually two teams that I think some people around, NFL circles are more bullish on than others. I mean, I'm particularly bullish on the Patriots. I've heard a lot of, good arguments for why the Raiders could make
I've
improvements.
seen them in a lot of wild card projections this offseason, a lot more than I was expecting. I was thinking like maybe one or two here and there, but it's like almost 50% of the wild card projections I see from talking heads around the league have the Patriots in there, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't necessarily press them that high, but I definitely can
Right.
see the argument there. I think they're going to be probably one of the most improved teams in the NFL though, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. The next game we have on the schedule here, the Carolina Panthers head into Jacksonville to take on the Jags. And the Jags are -3.5 here at home. Game total on this one, 46.5. V. You are liking Carolina here at +3.5. I really like where your head's at on this one. Tell me what you're seeing in it.
Yeah, this is just way too many points for a Jacksonville Jaguars team that has a lot to prove this year. They need to prove that they're worthy of getting a hook at any point in the season, no matter who they're playing against. Trevor Lawrence played 9 games last year in games where he started and finished. Jacksonville went 2-7 in those games, and only in one of those 2 wins did they win by more than 3 points. So Trevor Lawrence only covered a 3.5 point spread once last season. So I'm gonna have to see it to believe it. There should be a lot of improvement on that side of the ball. Again, we just talked about Liam Cohen. This is where he went to. He went to Jacksonville to become the head coach. But I think we expect big things, but we definitely need to see it to believe it. We need to see how his usage looks like, not only in the running back room with guys like ETN and Tank Bigsby. There's been a lot of chatter in the offseason. It sounded like some were expecting one of those guys to get traded. Both guys end up staying in Jacksonville, so we'll have to see how he manages the workload between those two guys. And then the bigger question is, how is he going to manage Travis Hunter in terms of his snap count, both on offense and on defense? Because, you know, as good as Brian Thomas Jr. is, and he might end up being a top 10 receiver by the end of the year, there's not a lot else going on in that wide receiver core if Hunter's not out on the field. I mean, you like Parker Washington, you like Tim Patrick, Brenton Strange is probably going to have a pretty good season, but none of those guys are guys that are going to scare defenses. So you need that other element out there. So it's just going to be really interesting to see what he does, and without knowing what that's going to look like, I just can't put my faith in Jacksonville with this many points. And then obviously, you really like what you saw from Bryce Young in Carolina to finish out the season, similar to what we were just talking about with Michael Penix. How they just had a phenomenal end to the season. In the final 9 games of last year, Bryce Young had 17 total touchdowns to only 6 turnovers. He had a passer rating of over 100 in each of his last 3 games. They draft McMillan in the first round. He looked phenomenal in the preseason. That seems like it's going to be a really, really good connection right off the bat. Carolina's defense obviously isn't great, but they're getting Derek Brown back, who missed pretty much the entire year last year after getting hurt in week 1. So I think there's going to be some nice pieces. I'm very excited to see what J.C. Horn does against Brian Thomas Jr. That's going to be a really, really fun cornerback wide receiver matchup. Only thing to note for Carolina in terms of injuries is Ike Ekwonu is listed as doubtful with an illness, so him missing could be a big deal, having to go up against Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen on the other side. So I probably wouldn't take Carolina to win outright on the money line, but again, getting the hook here is just too many points for me to pass up.
Didn't Iquanu have an appendix? Is that what he did? I think he
It
got it.
said illness. I didn't go any deeper, but that could be it.
I think it was an appendix, or I might be thinking of somebody else. Oh, my dog is real excited underneath me. She likes this game too, also. And one of my favorite stats of Shadow, Mama, relax. One of my favorite stats of the whole summer has been what I saw from Bryce Young in this Panthers offense when they came back after he came back from his benching. A stat that I have been throwing out constantly, constantly, constantly has been when Bryce Young came back from week 8 onward, he had the most big time throws in the NFL. More than Justin Herbert, more than Joe Burrow. He had the most big time throws in the NFL. He was fearless, ripping it downfield.
Yep.
And now he gets Ted McMillan, who was one of the best deep ball receivers in college football last season. Had a 94 and a half grade on throws targeted more than 10 or more yards downfield. And I really love what we're going to see out of that. I think that this is going to be a lot better game. And I completely agree with you. The fact that
Yep.
Jacksonville is getting a hook here, I think is more off of way too much excitement from people seeing Travis Hunter. And I continue to see
Right.
like Trevor Lawrence, talk and Trevor Lawrence breakout talk. And
I mean, I could see it for sure, but again, you just got to prove it to me before you can
right.
put this line out there. It has to be earned. You can't just give this line out. This is the NFL. This is a Jacksonville team that has underperformed for years upon years. When we talk about the hierarchy of the NFL, Jacksonville and Carolina are much closer than I think Jacksonville fans want to admit. This is not some upper tier team that is constantly succeeding. They have a lot to prove.
Well, in Carolina took two really good edge rushers in the draft in Nick Scourton and who else did they take? Print. Yeah.
However you say his
Yeah,
name.
we'll have to look into exactly how you pronounce it. I don't want to butcher it right now, but yes. So I think that you're going to see some improvement there on that defense and that pass rush, where they're also a team that really struggled in the pass rush, and that could be an issue if Ike Mukwanu is not able to go, which it looks like not. He's doubtful now. I know that
Mhm.
there was sort of some questions, and he was thinking he might be able to go, but obviously they're going to err on the side of caution there. So that's going to be something worth watching. And I'm right there with you, partner. I think that this is way too many points. I probably would have put this one under the hook. I would have put it at maybe -2.5. So this is going to be a really
Yeah.
good one to watch too. An underrated game for the morning slate.
Yep.
And then on to the next game, which this is a spot that this is very interesting game to me. I'll just say that I don't want to get too mean. I don't want to get too high on the other team. I'll just say that I have some shares out there on the Saints not winning a game this season. I think that
Ooh,
I think
oh,
that
that
they
is
look
spicy.
when we
That
talk
is
about
spicy.
how bad this Saints team was without Derek Carr, it was abysmal. They had the lowest passing grade in the NFL by a mile when Derek Carr was not on the field. And now we're asking Spencer Radler to come in and start for them again. You know, Tyler Shuck, I'm almost proud that they had the confidence not to necessarily start him and to let him sort of develop, because he could be decent, but I think that there's an issue when you're like, first things first, we're going to start a 26-year-old rookie with an injury history that's a mile long. That the nicest way to put it is has some head scratching plays, some head scratching throws
Mm,
at times, especially when we were going through combine workouts. I know everybody saw that, that video of him completely butchering a slant that was a
yeah,
gimme, and I don't
not
I'm
great.
yeah, I don't I don't quite know how you do it. I don't want to get too far into it because I don't want to say mean things to him, but yeah, I really don't see a lot going for this Saints team. And actually the Cardinals, speaking of, we were talking about the Patriots being a team that is in vogue to be, a wild card berth. For me, the Cardinals are my team for most improved, and I have them with a wild card berth this season. I
Yep.
think that they are going to be way improved defensively, and that was their big Achilles heel last season. They were extremely efficient when they had a 7-point lead or when they had any lead. but they just couldn't get those leads very often because their defense was atrocious. Now they have a lot of pieces. They took two really good draft picks in Walter Nolan and Will Johnson. And I think that they are going to be electric for them, as well as they got Josh Sweat. And man, this pass
Yep.
rush is going to be cooking. This is exactly what Jonathan Gannon has been trying to build towards. Now I think you're going to see what he can do. And just like he did with those Eagles teams that had vaunted pass rushes, I think this Cardinals team is going to be much improved rushing the passer. They're going to be improved in coverage. And we already know what they can do. They have a running game that can run between the tackles and downhill with James Conner. And then you have Kyler Murray. You have Harrison, and you can go
Mhm.
out there and win games when you need to and establish the run right from the jump. And I think that that's going to be the recipe that this team needs to really, really have a great season. So I love the Cardinals here heading into New Orleans as 6.5 point road favorites. I can see odds makers are right on board with me here, and I am taking them. I love that this game is under the 7. Now, if you guys are shopping a little bit later into the weekend and this game moves towards that 7, you might be a little bit more hesitant, but I like it a lot right here at -6.5, and I'm going to go ahead and take the Cardinals here. V, are you seeing anything else in this one?
No, I think you hit a lot of it. Arizona's my survivor pick for week 1, so hopefully we that works out. We don't need any more early season losses there like we've had the last couple of years. So let's go Arizona on that one. Yeah, very very interesting on the no wins for New Orleans. I think I could see it. It's going to be a tough situation, but with that said, they do have like good pieces on offense outside the quarterback. They still have Chris Olave. You still have Rashid Shaheed. Kamara's getting up there, and there's some questions on if he's going to stick around in New Orleans, but, he can still play when he's out there. They've drafted a couple young offensive linemen each of the last 2 drafts in the first round. Well, Kelvin Banks this year and Fatanu last year. So there's some good pieces there. Like, if they can go into the draft next year and hit on a quarterback, which is the most likely outcome, I'm going to call it now maybe already. It could be my 2026 pick from going worst to first in their division. I think they do have enough talent where if you can hit on a quarterback, I don't know if I'm sold on Kellen Moore though as a head coach. He has a lot to prove there. But if you can kind of make some of that work, I think there is some hope there. It's just not going to be in 2025. So I'm totally fine betting everything against the Saints all season and just taking the spread, hammering money lines, betting against them in Survivor every week. I think that's a totally fair play.
That's definitely going to be one of the teams that we follow around bullying a lot this season. I feel
Yeah,
like
I think that's
we always
totally
have
honest.
we always have one of them, and they
Yeah.
they were partially that team last season too, but that's okay.
Remember they started 2-0 last year, and then they just fell off a cliff.
It's so funny because we talked about this Saints team more than any two people should who don't live in New Orleans
Yeah.
last season with how they really went from being I remember we were talking about this last season and you were low on them and I was a little bit
Yes.
higher after week 1 and week 2 and then I was
They just
drinking
blew
the
out the Cowboys, and I was like, "Oh my god, I made a huge mistake just shitting all over the Saints." And then thankfully it worked out at the end. But man, that was a crazy 2 weeks.
Now, it was absolutely insane, and it's funny because as soon as we started picking them up, and I picked them for probably 2 to 3 straight weeks after that and just got
Yep.
hammered. So, it was a really funny draw there. It's funny how the way things work and watch them come out and, blow out the Cardinals and win in week 2 also and then do the same thing. So, this will be another game that might not be that interesting to watch, but I think it has a ton of really interesting implications for how this season will shake out
For
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
And then the next game on the slate here, we have the San Francisco 49ers heading into Seattle to take on the Seahawks. The Niners -1.5 on the road here. And they're also a very vogue pick for a team to go worst to first this season. Something I talked about on the PFF betting show today. Something that I've been thinking about a lot this season. I think they're going to be improved. They have one of the easiest strength of schedules in the NFL. But I think we have to pump the brakes a little bit. Their big Achilles heel last year was that they were struggling with injuries. Fast
Yep.
forward to the start of 2025. And they're again struggling with struggling with injuries. Christian McCaffrey pops up on the injury report with a calf again. That's not what I want to hear after I drank the Kool-Aid and drafted him first in a bunch of leagues this season. So that's going to be one that I'm going to be monitoring moving forward. You still have Brandon Ayuk hurt. Jawan Jennings, he's dealing with the contract dispute. So there's a lot up in the air for this 49ers team all of a sudden. But then Seattle, very, very overhauled offense. I think that that's going to be something that bears monitoring moving forward. But I am liking them also, and you're taking them here at +2.5. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in this game.
Yep, I'm liking Seattle +2.5 and probably to win this game outright, given that line. And starting off with exactly what you're talking about, you have to start with the injuries for San Francisco on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, Ayuk's still dealing with his injury from last year. He's going to miss probably a month, month and a half to start the season. Demarcus Robinson suspended for the first 3 games of the year. McCaffrey, like you said, pops up on the injury report. He was at the DNP today with the calf injury. There was a report that came out afterwards later on the day today from Schefter saying McCaffrey feels like he's totally 100% going to play. This is more of a maintenance day, and we're kind of blowing the injury report out of proportion. But obviously, I think we all have a lot of scars from last year, especially week 1 last year on that Monday night game where he was a very, very late scratch. And then that was just a bad sign for the rest of the season where he didn't play very much. So a lot to figure out there. If some of these guys aren't able to go, then you're looking at Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings as your top 2 guys with George Kittle, which you can make that work against some teams, but I think against this Seattle defense is going to be a little bit tougher. San Francisco lost some guys on defense. Dre Greenlaw, Hufanga, Travarius Ward are all gone. They've gotten a lot younger on that side of the ball. They drafted Michael Williams in the first round. They have a couple of young guys starting in the secondary, and Redardo Green, who was a second-round pick from last year, and then Upton Stout, who was a third or fourth rounder this year. So we'll have to see how some of these young guys perform. They do get Robert Saleh back as their defensive coordinator, so that should help out with some familiarity with the players who were there last time he was the DC. But yeah, again, there's just a lot of unknowns going on that side of the ball that'll be interesting to see. Big changes for Seattle on offense. Darnold in, Cooper Kupp in, Metcalf gets traded. Tyler Lockett is now in Tennessee. But I think the big key that I think they have in their favor right now is that they are healthy on the offensive line going into week 1. You have Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, who got his big extension just a couple days ago, as your tackles. And then you have first rounder Gray Zabel at guard, who made a very, very good impression in the preseason. He was being talked about a lot when he got in there. And then you have Kenneth Walker, who is healthy for now going into week 1. So I think we could see a lot of big things out of this running game while those guys are healthy. And if you can get the running game going, Sam Darnold is more than capable enough of playing good enough football off the play action when you get that running game going. And then Seattle's defense, I think, is going to be super interesting to watch. They have a ton of good players going into Mike McDonald's second year as head coach. You have Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy up front, and then you still have Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon in the secondary. You picked up DeMarcus Lawrence in free agency. So there's just a ton of good pieces there. I think I just feel like there's a lot more knowns with the Seattle team in general as compared to San Francisco, where you're dealing with injuries and dealing with young players, where there just feels to be some unknowns right now. So I'm just going to take Seattle at home, getting points. I just feel more comfortable with where they're at right now.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there when we talk about how this 49ers defense really, really struggled against the run last season. They were very lowly graded. They couldn't really tackle very well, and they spent a lot in the draft to try to improve that. But fast forward to the preseason, and they still had tackling issues. They had the most missed tackles in August, or the second most missed tackles in August, and that's not a great look. So I think you're going to have a lot of trouble when you come up against a guy like Kenneth Walker, who, since he's come into the league, he's a broken tackle machine. He is hard to bring down. Now, soft tissue injuries have definitely been an issue for them. He has that foot that he's been dealing with. I think you also get Zach Charbonnet, who's going to definitely get a lot of work here. I don't know that this San Francisco team really matches up well with Seattle. I think that San Francisco can be much improved. I think they can match up pretty well with other teams. I just don't think that Seattle is that team that they're going to match up with. Now, I will say this. They are one of my underdog values of the week too, and I completely agree with you here. One of the things that I'm going to be monitoring with Seattle all season, and so is everybody else, is what is Sam Darnold going to do? It's really,
Yeah.
really, really hard to sit there and sort of wipe away all of the bad that we saw for all of his career after that really phenomenal season in Minnesota. Because to be frank, I'm a big fan of KOC. I think Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback whisperer. If he can bring that out of Sam Darnold, I mean, he can bring it out of anybody. But the question
Yeah.
remains is that who Sam Darnold is, or is that who Kevin O'Connell is? Now, I think it's probably a little bit of both. I think you're going to have to really watch that moving forward. But I think that Seattle knows that. I don't think that Seattle's going to put a whole lot on his plate right out of the gate. I think they're going to run the ball, and I think they're going to really, for lack of a better term, punch the 49ers in the mouth. Like you said, Gray Zabel has had a phenomenal preseason. He was a top 3 graded run blocker in the preseason this August. So I'm with you there. I like Seattle as the underdog as well. The last game on our list is one that I am targeting. I'm actually targeting this game in a couple of places. We have the Houston Texans heading into LA to take on the Rams. The Rams are 3-point favorites here. The game total on this one, about 43 and a half points. And I am leaning on the under here. I also really like Houston getting the points. Now, there's a lot to be said about what this matchup means. This is two really good teams. We have some questions on both sides, but I think the big thing for me here is that this Houston defense is tough, man. They are strong and they really match up well with what the Rams can do. Now, the Rams were one of the best offenses in the league last year, and they really only got better by upgrading Cooper Kupp with Devontae Adams. But I have some questions when we talk about Matthew Stafford's back flaring up and
Oh,
Alaric Jackson coming back from blood clots without having any time in camp. I really think that that's going to be a big issue against this Texans defense that has phenomenal players in the secondary, has two phenomenal pass rushers, and can play the run pretty well. I think you're going to see Will Anderson. I think you're going to see Daniil Hunter really get after it. And I think you're going to see Derek Stingley begin a campaign that's going to be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. The cornerback meta is in. I think he's going to see a lot of work. And then you have Kamari Lassiter on the other side. Both of these corners finished in the top 12 in PFF coverage grading. And I really, really love what they're doing there. CJ Gardner-Johnson, he's back. He practiced this week. The knee injury scare, that was, pretty bad. That was a little bit gut wrenching for them, but it looks like he's going to be okay. And it looks like he was practicing without a brace. So that's going to be a positive trend. And then we got to talk about the other side. I think everybody loves the headline of, oh, brand new offensive line for the Texans. Offensive line was really, really bad last season. You're going to have to go up against Jared Verse, Byron Young. I agree. I 100% agree. That is a huge mismatch there. Ariante Ursary, second round pick, starting at left tackle. They've been shuffling the offensive line all offseason, trying to find the right guys, really just throwing darts at the dartboard. And who's to say that this is the right combination of dudes that they need? That is definitely a valid question. One of the things that we've been seeing in the preseason, though, is that Nick Caley, the new Texans offensive coordinator, he's been trying to get the ball out of Stroud's hands faster. In Stroud's limited play in the preseason, he had a 2.53 average time to throw. That's so much faster than he was throwing last year. It was at a 3.01 last season, which was seventh slowest in the NFL. So they're looking to get that ball out quick. And when you can get the ball out quick, that helps to neutralize pass rushes and take pressure off of your offensive line. Now, we have questions about the running game. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to be a Nick Chubb believer until I see it. I think that, his heydays probably past him, but I think that they can still have a decently productive run game. And, the Texans' offensive line looked decent in the preseason. I think we have to really see it come to action. This is going to be a real test. This isn't the team that they probably hope to see, week one with that situation, but I think it's going to be something that, they're going to have to put up or shut up. But the other big thing is who's going to cover Nico Collins? Who the hell is going to cover Nico Collins? This Rams secondary was among the worst in the NFL last season. They were bottom 5 in most throws of 15 or more yards and an open target percentage. It just was not a good look. None of their starting corners for this season. So the funniest thing happens when you ask NFL teams questions. So the depth chart comes out and they list all 4 of their corners as an either or type thing. And their angle was, any of these guys are good enough to be the starter. We have 4 starters at cornerback. Excuse me? I think that's just...
Nobody has 4 starters at cornerback in the NFL. It's just not a thing.
I think that this team is just not being upfront with the fact that they're like, none of these guys are really that good. So who knows? They're going to have to fight it out in the season and figure it out. But I don't think we have anybody that's going to cover Nico Collins. And I am about as big of a Jaden Higgins fan that there is out there. I think he's phenomenal. He's one of the highest graded outside receivers in college football last season. The highest graded outside receiver in college football last season. And I am ecstatic to see him play together with Nico Collins. They're going to be running out there in an offense that's going to look like you have 2 X receivers and 2 just absolute towers out there that are going to jump ball everybody and just run the brakes off of them. I think this Rams secondary is going to be holding on for dear life. So that's where I'm at. I'm liking the under here. 2 strong defenses. Matthew Stafford banged up. I think we're going to have to figure something out with the running game for the Texans, but I also do like Houston at +3 here. V, is there anything else that you're seeing in this one?
Nope, I am 100% in lockstep with you. Those plays are both going to be on my card as well. Definitely like the under. There's just too many badass players on both sides of the ball in terms of both defenses in this game. And then, yeah, Stafford's back. That was all we were talking about, for the middle of the preseason, and then this past week or two, it feels like we've just forgotten about it and we're just ignoring it and assuming everything's going to be good to go. And I'm very, very worried about that situation. I avoided a lot of Rams players in fantasy drafts the last week or two just because I have no idea what's going to happen with Stafford in terms of if he's going to be able to play a full season. And I'm not relying on Jimmy Garoppolo to bail me out because that's just not going to happen. So there is plenty of concern, I think, valid concern for the Rams based on what we see with Stafford. Hopefully everything works out because it's much more fun when Stafford is healthy and rolling. I mean, that offense was so much fun to watch when he was out there, when Puka was out there, when Kupp was out there, and they were just rolling teams. It was super fun to watch. So I hope he's good to go. I hope he's healthy, but we just don't know that. So you can't be giving a full 3 points in this game against a Houston team that has just too many good players. Obviously, there's questions about Houston's offensive line, like you mentioned, but Stroud is healthy and he's a mobile guy. He can move, he can avoid pressure, so he can make it work if he needs to, if his offensive line still has some issues this year. So I'm not overly concerned with that. So definitely like Houston to probably win this game outright, if we're being honest. I think 3 is just too many points in this game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, one of the big concerns I have is Alaric Jackson, it almost feels like he also just came back out of nowhere. Like we were really concerned about him missing significant time this season with the blood clots, which for anybody that, has been keeping up with that, he's had blood clots before in the past that were provoked. I'm not quite sure exactly the combination, but this time they were unprovoked in his leg. And that's a serious thing. That means they popped up out of nowhere. And I have some concerns about having no time for him to get ready, no real practice time, and he's going to come out here and he's going to have to block 2 of the best pass rushers in the game, and Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Like, he's a really great player. He's a phenomenal player. I have some concerns that he's going to have one get away from him, and Will Anderson, it only takes one hit from a monster, defensive end for Matthew Stafford to be out for, 6 to 8 weeks with a back or longer
Right.
potentially. And then we're looking at Jimmy Garoppolo operating, this offense, or, who knows? Maybe they throw Stetson Bennett out there for, it, who knows? Stetson Bennett, I
Yeah.
feel like, has made a career off of playing every snap of their preseason and then just not getting any time. So this is going to be an interesting draw, to say the least. This is one of the highest powered games on the schedule. There's a lot of really good games. Can't wait to see this one go down. Can't wait to see the whole schedule go down, partner. And that,
Yep.
oh, sorry, y'all. The video started playing when I changed the scene. And that does it for our week 1 betting recap, or betting breakdown show. Locked in. It was a lot of fun. Can't wait to do this again next week. We're back same time next, or not same time. We're a little bit early this week. We're going to be 8 p.m. Eastern time next week. Check us all out. All the teams work over in our Discord. If you guys aren't in there, join importantnonsense.com. That's how you get in. We have more picks that are going to be coming in the Discord. Hit us up with all your betting questions there. I don't know if we still have IN merch, but you can check us out there. Promo code LOCK. I'm probably saying that, and Steve's somewhere going, what are you talking about? But anyway, V, do you have any parting words for the folks at home?
Definitely jump into the Discord, ask us your questions, check out our picks. I'm going to have a full slate coming out tomorrow probably at some point, so check those out. And yeah, football is all the way back. It's going to be a super, super fun week 1, and I can't wait to do this for another 20 or so weeks with you, partner.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to do it too, V. And to everybody, good night and good luck.